really did extraordinary things in terms of continuing what he called the lasting Linden, sort of this approach that we really do need to continue to care about poverty programs, about education programs, about providing a genuine opportunity for everyone.
North Carolina was right on the cusp of major economic change. New technologies and all that were putting stress on textiles and furniture.
Meet Harold and Nappy Wilkinson, textile workers for over 50 years. Like a lot of hardworking Americans, they planned for a safe, secure retirement. But something happened.
The 1980s was the heyday of leveraged buyouts and corporate takeovers. Cannon Mills, which got taken over by one of these leveraged buyout raiders, it left almost 40,000 Cannon Mills workers without the pension fund that they had been expecting.
Terry Sanford went to work. He held hearings, drafted legislation, helped save the pensions of 9,000 North Carolinians.
He was able to convince the raider involved to pay out money to each of these annuitants and to change the tax policy so this didn't happen again in the future.
When a man works as hard as Terry Sanford has for the people, not just for politics, I feel like that he has went to Washington for the everyday people.
Terry Sanford, fighting for the people of North Carolina.
Sanford wanted to try things. I think his critics would say that maybe he wanted to try too many things and that he believed in government too much. But Sanford thought that the government could be a force for good and that they ought to experiment and see if government could make a difference.
You have to remember that this is a time in which the other senator from North Carolina was Senator Jesse Helms.
They called him Senator No after a lifetime of opposing racial quotas, abortion, and gay rights.
Let me say, first of all, Mr. Chairman, that I examined your proposal as best I could.
Jesse Helms is one of the most effective Southern demagogues of the 20th century. Everything that offended him and his followers I found to be reassuring and hopeful. Jesse Helms was about 100% the opposite of Terry Sanford.
People always asked Terry Sanford what it was like to be in the Senate with Jesse Helms, and his response was always, other than the fact that he doesn't want me here and I don't want him here, we get along just fine.
You are a liar. You are a liar.
There was that meanness, this mean spirit, just an effort to be in opposition, just to be in opposition, very little motivation to be cooperative.
Who is really the threat to peace in Central America?
During the 1980s, the United States became embroiled in war and conflict in Central America. You had the rise of the Sandinista Party that the Reagan administration wanted to put down because it was communist, and so the Reagan administration helped support what were known as the Contras.
I lived and worked in Nicaragua, and I got very, very involved with human rights work. And in one of my trips back to the United States, I went up to the Hill. In a lot of these trips, you don't actually get to meet with the senator or the congressperson, you're meeting with the assistant, but I met with Terry Sanford. Here was an on-the-ground person who wasn't giving him a special party line. She really had first-hand information, but it was a little bit different than what you were reading on the front pages of the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. He was very, very interested.
Sanford tried to rise above the fray and to say what Central America needed was economic rejuvenation.
We can initiate legislation to replace our little battlefield in Central America with a creative kind of Marshall Plan for that region. In fact, we can do no less.
My fellow Americans, for several years now, under two administrations, the United States has been increasing its defense of freedom in the Caribbean basin.
But we didn't have an administration that thought the Contra War was wrong. They were pumping money into it. The administration simply wasn't in favor of doing what we were in favor of doing.
Central Americans want prosperity and peace. Our purposes and their purposes coincide and overlap. Their hopes and our needs are rooted in their sustainable economic development based on a foundation of political democracy in a climate of peace and justice.
He wanted to make a difference in the Senate. He was frustrated because he was very much an executive kind of guy, not a legislative functionary.
One reason I wasn't successful in getting things done was that I was trying to get things done. Many people learn very soon that don't try too hard to get something changed because things really don't get changed very often.
Terry wrote a line at one point, too much democracy is like too much shortcake. You know, that at a certain point, you need leaders and rules and discipline, you know, to get stuff done.
When I ran for the United States Senate 6 years ago, I ran with the simple idea that the mess in Washington needed a heavy dose of North Carolina wisdom. And after 5 years, I can tell you I was right about the medicine, but I underestimated how sick the patient is. This campaign is about the people of America taking control of their government and making this country of ours, all that it can and ought to be.